just thinking about the relationship between the kind of information we get through our senses, but perhaps through our instrumentation as well, and the kind of theories that we produce. And by theories I mean both the formal theories that we produce through scientific processes, but also the kind of theories that we make up as we go along, kind of vernacular theories about how the world works. Because there must be a relationship. I'd say the actual starting point for me for this was just this memory I had about, it's pretty years ago, must be 30 years ago at least. There was supposedly a UFO sighting here in the UK about 30 years ago. I remember watching it on the television. And it was by two commercial airline pilots, so it was supposed to have a bit of credibility, because they're used to seeing weird stuff. And they described this thing that they saw through the cockpit, the screen of the cockpit, the window of the cockpit. And it was really interesting because it said this thing that they saw, it could change shape. They said, and they had drawings of the different shapes that it had adopted as it changed. From one moment it looked like a sausage with two little projections sticking out, and then they saw it just kind of morphed whilst they were watching it into a completely different shape, more like a cross, and then it morphed again into a V shape or something. And as I said, they had sketches that they'd done of these different shapes, and they were kind of speculating, not just the pilots, but other people were speculating on what it could have been, obviously, but also speculating on how it could possibly adopt these different shapes. And some people were talking about it as if it was, like the Terminator on Terminator 2, he's made of that like liquid metal, and he can change his body. So there's some speculation that this UFO, whatever it was made of some futurological shape-shifting metal that could adopt different shapes to carry out different functions, I guess. And there was another comment about, maybe it could transform, a bit like Transformers, I guess, those toys, and in the film. That this was a piece of machinery that could change its configuration dramatically in flight. And that might be a reason why it's making these different profiles and showing these different shapes. But about a week later, there was a guy came on, and he said that he was I think he was either a plane spotter or he worked in the aviation industry somehow. And he said the most likely explanation for what they've seen is that it's actually just an ordinary plane in flight, and he identified which kind of plane he was talking about. And he said, but if you see this plane from different angles, the outline is different, it makes a different profile. So what's probably happened is they're looking at this object either through light mist or through unusual lighting conditions, and so the three-dimensionality of the object has disappeared, this plane, and all they can see is what appears to be a solid object. And as the object changes its orientation, it changes its outline, so it looks like it's changing shape. And I thought that was really interesting, because not because it was such a prosaic explanation, but the fact that these theories have been produced about it being made of a particular kind of metal, or of it being able to transform mechanically. These are theories that's being produced to account for a very real observation that this thing appears to be changing shape, or it has a changing outline at least. So anyway, that thought led me on to think about Plato's cave, which seems like a long way away, I'm sure, but never mind. Plato's cave, I'm sure you know it, but it's in one of his bits of writing somewhere, is a kind of poetic vision of how he sees the world and how he sees our ability to see and know things in the world. And he basically says that we are like I think he said prisoners, but we're like people who are chained inside a cave with our faces away from the opening, facing the cave wall ahead of us. So all we can see is the cave wall. We can't see the light behind us, we can't see the world behind us. But the light in the world behind us is casting shadows and casting flickering lights on that wall. So as we look at the wall, we think we're seeing the world, or rather that's the only access to the world that we have. And all of the theories that we have are theories not about the world, but theories about the flickering lights and the changing shadows on the wall. I mean, to me that seems connected because it's a three-dimensional object being presented in two-dimensional terms, as opposed to a two-dimensional object being speculated as a particular kind of three-dimensional object. But I think what Plato was getting at with that, I mean, obviously he's coming at it kind of theologically or metaphysically at least. But what stripping that of all that, just taking a kind of secular approach to it, I think what's going on in Plato there is that the way we see the world with the instrumentation of our own senses, but possibly even with other instrumentation, the instrumentation of our microscopes and telescopes and whatever other bits of instrumentation we've got, they don't necessarily see the world. They see projections on this kind of screen of their own creating. You know what I mean? We see the world the way we do because we kind of have the kind of eyeballs that we do, and the kind of visual system that we do, and the kind of screen on the back of our eyeball that our retina makes, and the kind of imaginary screen that exists in our mind when we feel as if we're seeing the world. And the same with all the other senses. And as I say, the same with instrumentation. We gather all this data from the world, but it's the instrumentation, it's not the world that we're seeing, it's the results of the instrument's contact with the world. So again, we're always looking at the shadows on Plato's caves, or we're always looking at UFOs that are really aeroplanes. And again with theories, the theories that we make about the world, it seems to me, whether, as I say, those are the scientific theories, the theories that are produced by science to account for the variations in our instruments' readings, or to make predictions about what will happen in those instrumentations' readings if we change the conditions. Those theories, but also the vernacular theories about what the world is like. Here we are in space, travelling through time, doing this and that, separated by bits of space, and here are all these solid objects, and all that kind of theoretical stuff is really just based on our observations and based on the sensory data that the instrumentations of our own bodies is providing. And it could well be, that we're making huge mistakes. We're making all these theories up, but in a sense they're possibly no more valid than the shape-shifting robots and transformers that are dreamed up to account for the changing profiles of a UFO, when actually all there is aeroplanes. It's aeroplanes all the way down.